It's the 11th of February 2020. I'm your host, Dana Durnford. Welcome. It's amazing how much news is coming out on the coronavirus and the trolls, of course. Forbes says that the coronavirus is plateaued. Like, you got to look at Forbes' legacy. The building to your left over there, my right, way over, is Reactor 4. It's a nuclear meltdown in Japan. Forbes puts these people here from mainstream media, that's actually CNN, claiming the building is not destroyed like you're looking at. That's Forbes' legacy.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake.
Do you think she's in the building to the left?
Leading to the country's worst nuclear...
Right. And so Forbes' legacy is perpetrating those people. Here's a handful of them.
What I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima
Daiichi nuclear
power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake.
So then it's no big surprise when you see Forbes coming out saying, because like first off, you can't be above a nuclear meltdown. It doesn't work that way. And you can't rebuild above a nuclear meltdown. It doesn't work that way. And so when you see ABC from Australia, CNN, BBC, Rupert Winfield-Hayes, and Seth Dorn, and actually Senator's son from CBS telling you they're on a building that don't exist, that's the norm with Forbes. It's outrageous that they're doing that. 1 in 19 people who might have coronavirus are being diagnosed in Wuhan. 1 in 19 is being diagnosed at best. Now they have alternative motives for talking about it that way. This is the university, this is the Imperial College in London where Geraldine Thomas works. And if you follow my nuclear reports for many years, you'll know who she is. And if you don't, she's like Forbes, a notorious lying machine. But you know, you got to have some people there that are reasonable. But the Imperial College... Okay, so the next story, like that's an important story. There's a lot of stories, so let's just keep rolling. It's shocking what's coming out in a 24-hour cycle, including Forbes, of course. Only 1 in 19 people who might have coronavirus are being diagnosed. So the next story, it's a gruesome story. It's about the dead in Wuhan. And I'm going to show you screen captures from a video showing police putting 3 dead children in the same body bag. So if you don't want to look, you can look away in 3, 2, 1. And what you're seeing, we'll just flash through this stuff, is that's the first body. Then you bring in a second body right away. And then a third body. Unbelievable. They died from the coronavirus. This is stuff they're not telling you about. Scientists worry coronavirus could evolve into something worse. And by the way, I'm finished with the pictures. You can look back again. The only scary thing you're going to see is me. Scientists worry coronavirus could evolve into something worse than the flu. Well, that previous story is worse than the flu. This is a strange story. Coronavirus may come from Chinese super laboratory, Republican senator. I just say it's a strange story because you don't, for some reason, we're not seeing some controversies about this. No one wants to go there, and we've seen Zero Hedge website, major website, lose their Twitter account because they suggested that it was a bioweapon from some country. And BuzzFeed, the guardians of the galaxy, got their sites taken down because BuzzFeed is like Forbes. They're guns for hire. And CNN. And ABC and BBC. Guns for hire. He's been speaking out strongly. This is the senator. He's been speaking out. He's been speaking out very heavily at a Senate Armed Service Committee hearing Thursday. Cotton described the coronavirus as the biggest, most important story in the world, calling it worse than Chernobyl. Now, like, he doesn't know, and you probably don't know either, that after Chernobyl, like, you've been led to believe it's a 30-kilometer exclusion zone around Chernobyl, which was a nuclear meltdown for those not familiar with it. And the reality of it was they closed 9,000 farms in Ireland, Scotland, and United Kingdom after Chernobyl. 9,000 farms because of radiation 3,000 miles away. So they contaminated the whole European country. Chinese, this is a terrifying story. Just a couple of pictures. They're not up close, but they're still pictures. I'll warn you when we get there. Chinese community officers beat stray dogs. They weren't actually stray. Like, you can't get near a stray dog. They walked right up to it and beat the dog to death. It was a pet. In broad daylight to prevent them from spreading coronavirus. There's no evidence dogs are spreading coronavirus. There's been a couple of conjectures, opinions out there. Their act was captured on Canada by on camera. I got a lot of equipment going on. I got a hot cup of tea there that I blah 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 blah. Let's keep going. And it's less than 24 hours, and I'm doing another presentation on this again. It's just, it should give you, should raise your awareness how serious this actually is. This is definitely going to get worse, and it's probably not going to get better. Comes amid widespread fear the animals could pick up and spread the virus. The communities around China have ordered the residents to stop keeping pets. So these are a lot of interesting statements I've never heard before. The act was captured on Canada. I'm going to show you some pictures. There's 4 of them. I'll tell you when I'm through. You can look away if you don't want to watch. And so he's got a long stick. It's harder to kill an animal with a very long stick. Not that I'm an expert, but like, you know, a baseball bat is about the longest as you really want to go. It's length because it's never mind. Like lengthwise. And so these are small dogs. And in a city of 11 million, they're highly unlikely to be stray dogs. And these are houses on those streets. We're still on the pictures, so hang on. We got two more to get through. Outrageous. It's outrageous. Okay, we're past those pictures. So police are walking around with no protection as it is. They're spreading the virus to everybody they come in contact with. You should put them in big pink paper suits so we can spot them and help them. So the police are just, what they're doing in China, there's something going on that the Western and the rest of the world is not aware of. I'm going to make you aware of it coming up in a little tiny bit. Chinese media, I got about 400 pictures to get through. Well, frames, right? And Chinese media firm cuts 500 workers in a bid to save their company. They laid off 500 people, 10%, and says it's needed to resort to such measures to survive the impact of the coronavirus outbreak. And once again, we see incredible tolls on everybody, including the 500 people. There's impacted severely financially, right? And that's a specialized job. It's not like you're going to find that all over the place to get another job. Cruise ship quarantine could make coronavirus outbreak worse. Yeah, if you put everybody in the same room, it could make it worse, could it? Gee, I would have never thought of that one. I'm so glad you geniuses in the media sorted that out for me. Long lines form on the first day of temperature screening in Singapore. Get a picture there. So to get to work now, you got to get your temperature taken, but your temperature there's a latency of up to 24 days before you manifest a fever. So you can get the test every day for 24 days before it finally goes ding, ding, ding. And guess what? How late you are with that one, the whole building can be contaminated. And so Hong Kong and Shanghai and Singapore now have, well, Hong Kong and Shanghai have locked down their province. Office building temperature screenings of workers. They only had one person there for a long time. They finally got a second person there. So most people never got to work till 10 a.m. And then the people that spoke out didn't want to be identified because, well, you'll understand that later in the show, I'm sure. Coronavirus outbreak impact on gas prices, car parts, and high-tech products. Because China's a big shaker and mover. It's a big supplier. When you put all these beds together, that's the same as a cruise ship where you know everybody's going to eventually get sick. And in this environment where you know they're going to be sick before they even get into the building, I don't know how they're going to get out of it. How do you get out of that building once you walk into it without being sick? How does that work? How do you tiptoe through the coronavirus, I wonder? Santa Clara country extends state of emergency over coronavirus outbreak. So a state of an emergency is an unusual declaration for a community, right? And you empower the local knuckleheads to give an extraordinary power that is easily abused. Seems there's no cases anywhere near them. That's an interesting statement, see? We see that all over the world now where they're just utter panicking. This ship here was turned down 5 times. 5 different ports. And there's no infections on board. Nothing's manifested since the first time they've been turned down on the ship, apparently. The latest country to turn away, Thailand, amid fears of the coronavirus. Despite no confirmed infections on board, they felt it was necessary to say, no thank you, we don't want you here. So this is a very strange time to be alive. Nobody would have ever thought, like just this story on its own, imagine, you know, on its very own, nothing else, no other stories, just this one story. That's bizarre, see? Pre-coronavirus. Last time we seen ships barred from entries into ports was after Fukushima nuclear meltdown. Because radioactive fallout covered the whole country and they have a lot of shipping. A lot of ships were going to different countries where China was kicking them out, sure. It also shows you in Malaysia, Indonesia, I think it is actually, 1,818 flights screened in the country where they took your temperature and freaked you out when you got off the plane. Imagine getting off the plane and this is what's waiting for you. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's better than screaming, okay? Because it is. And I'm 2 hours earlier than what I wanted to be. Just give me a second. 2 hours earlier than what I wanted to be. 1,818 flights screened in the country so far. 1,800. Okay, and so that works out to at 250 people on a plane would work out to 450,000 people. Got the bums rush. I'd be going home like I was in the Twilight Zone, which is what we are. Of course, we're in the Twilight Zone. Welcome to the Twilight Zone. Their numbers, it's hard to highlight on that page, but their numbers are weird, right? 197,000? I don't know. Coronavirus update. Singapore has 2 new cases. Run! Run! So that's a headline. 7 in critical condition. That's a really interesting thing. So critical condition means you'll be dead without life support. They stopped announcing the critical conditions in China last week, or no, it was the week before. Among the 45 cases in Singapore, 7 have been discharged. First off, they're going around and they're putting a thermometer to your head. That's their way of diagnosing you. And they got everybody doing it. People at bus stations are everywhere. You got a temperature, you're shipping you off to toilet zone. Shanghai confirms 3 more cases coronavirus. If you come in from outdoors with a jacket on and all of a sudden you're warm, you better get that jacket off, because some guy from minimum wage is going to take your temperature and then ship you off to the internment camps if you're not careful. Shanghai confirms 3 more cases coronavirus, bringing total to 302. So even if there's one, that's news story, mainstream media right now. That should warn you. That should definitely disturb you. They're finally putting the patsies in paper suits. That makes them feel better. Shanghai confirmed another 3 new cases of the novel coronavirus as of yesterday, bringing the total up 3 more. 20 remain in critical condition. 48 are fully recovered. I'm always suspect. I always figured the ones that are recovered are the ones who actually came in from outdoors and never unzipped their jacket. Who knows, right? And then we have actors and actresses out there posting their money makers up on the internet because they got a big following with their face mask on. A symbolic gesture for whatever. A major jewelry outlet is the newest one to take the fall and bail on China, striving to keep its branches clean and safe for customers and employees, so got no choice but to close down. Turn off air conditionings and open windows to lower risks of getting infected with coronavirus is advice now being pumped out there. That's some crazy advice. Like, and wipe your toilet seats, right? That's some insane advice that we're starting to hear. And then put up a mockery. You can see the whole building is loaded with Inquirer.net. Nice name. Can't remember where that's to. Philippines orders, because there's so many Asian countries right now that are terrified. We cover so many different stories. I'd just like to make sure before I pop go to Weasel, my version. Orders arrest of people spreading fake news about coronavirus. We've seen that a lot of headlines like this, and what that means is governments around the world are just livid, anally panicking on every facet of this story. Orders the country's police force to investigate and arrest those responsible for spreading false information about coronavirus. And so they'll get a few victims and jack them and turn them into exhibitions, and they're, what happens if they're right, see? Because you see all these countries just panicking if they get 3 of them in their country. May lose control of the coronavirus story, because that's basically referring to the Great Wall of China, right? And it's called a firewall, where they usually, if you're in China, unless you're using a VPN, you can't get YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or stuff like that. Don't lose track here. So Xi Jinping is the head of the Chinese Communist Party, right? Extraordinary power life and death power over communities, not just people. Coronavirus stretches limits of strained public health system in Asia and beyond. So this is a good point that we never want to lose sight of. Always understand that if this gets loose in the Philippines, where there's little or no healthcare, if it gets loose in Indonesia, or it gets loose in Africa, where there's completely impoverished and a dysfunctional medical system, it's going to go right out of proportion. And these places are ripe for an event like this. And Ethiopia Airlines refuses to stop going to China because they've been in business with them for a long time. And they don't have the healthcare system to back up those risks, right? I don't think anybody does. The solution right now for even very, very wealthy developed countries is isolation. Extreme measures on top of that. And they're only isolating them for 14 days instead of 24 days. And if you isolate them in facilities like this, what's the odds that it only takes one person there to get everybody sick? Like in a bad way, like those kids I showed you earlier. Raising questions over whether everyone can get equal access to treatment. Of course they can't. It's being a diplomatic way of asking the question. Tesco worker tells customer in Japan to stay away. So you can see this constant reminder of disproportionate reactions around the world, because subconsciously they have everybody in a heightened state of alarm. So he was driven away, yelled at and scorned because he had a face mask on. Dozens of households evacuated Hong Kong after 2 cases were in the same building. So there's 100 apartments apparently. Not dozens, but 100. Well, maybe it's 100 people. But there's 100 people that had to run away from their home because there was apparently 2 people and they're on different floors, different parts of the building. That's what I mean. Like, you're seeing the reaction you're seeing is like, well, I got nothing I can compare it to, in all honesty. Given the coronavirus thread is holding on to an escalator handrail, which they want you to do, really a good idea? Just a thought. Because you can imagine, you don't have to be coughing to expel the coronavirus, the virus itself. That's an illusion, and everybody hangs on to these things. I wouldn't. Coronavirus, Nissan to shut factories. There's one of many now that are shut, and a factory is employing an absurd amount of people, but most big factories are dependent upon slave labor from China. Global car brands are facing similar disruption as much as China's manufacturing sector remains locked down due to the coronavirus. So it's not just China, obviously. We've seen $1 trillion now looted from the stocks in just the last 2 weeks. And I only been following this for 3 weeks. And so therefore, it could be a lot more than that I'm not aware of, is what I'm saying, right? This is, you're coming in from outdoors with your jacket on, blah, 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 and you're into a warm building. What's the chance that a lot of these people are going to make mistakes? And if you're doing it outdoors, what's the chance that they're cold and it's not going to show up even if they do have a fever? Do you get what I'm going to, what I'm trying to say? The novel coronavirus could spread to 2/3. I chopped off the headline, but they put it there in a sentence. 2/3 of the world's population. So other stories are saying 60 to 80% of the population will probably end up with the coronavirus. And then we have studies right now, and the studies numbers keep going up. The last one was 11% fatality. The latest one yesterday's was 20% fatality. We have another study today talking about 1 in 19 are diagnosed. And they all got an agenda, so you have to interpret. We just jumped the barrel. We jumped the shark there. Hang on, I gotta get back to my spot. My spot. No. No. Almost. No. Right there. Here it is. I remember right there. Because I got 700 pieces of information to burn through. Over 400 of them are screen captures of, or frames of videos. The novel coronavirus epidemic could spread to around 2/3 of the world population if it cannot be controlled. Well, guess what? There's 5 million people got out of Dodge, aka Wuhan, before they put up the... And they've actually dug up the roads and blocked the roads that there's no getting around it. We covered it. What we've been doing now, this is show 11 or 12, where we're covering the headlines that are gathering up because there's so many more coming, fresh ones coming at us. And we're trying to find out, was this real? Is this really happening? What's the extent of it, etc., etc. And then here we are still going strong because this is, we're into the twilight zone. He warned in a paper in The Lancet, this was a paper outbreak was likely to grow exponentially in cities in China. Because on top of that, we just discovered it was up to 24 days for incubation period. Elsewhere, independent self-sustaining outbreaks in major cities globally could become inevitable because of substantial movements of people who were infected but not yet developed symptoms, which is what we're saying. There's a latency of 24 days, for instance, and that there's what they call super spreaders is a new adjective they got out there. Absence of public health measures to stop the spread. Going around taking people's temperature is not going to stop this one, or any other one for that matter. That's just desperation because they don't know, they haven't got a cure, they don't know how to make a vaccine because they don't understand it. And it could be 18 months before trials, which in a connected world we have, as we already see now, it's easy for this to spread. And we see this incredible response to even a single case where they'll actually isolate and quarantine cruise liners and countries won't even let them in. So there's a lot they're not telling you, but you can glean a lot from all the panic you're seeing in the media, because in one sense they're in the know, but they're not in the know. How long can you close schools for? How long can you lock down an entire city for? How long can you keep people away from shopping malls? And if you remove the restrictions, then it's all going to come right back and rage again. So that's very real questions they got there. These are questions we've been asked many times. Of course, coronavirus case doubles. This is Forbes. Same one told you it was disappearing. Coronavirus case doubles on the quarantine cruise ship. Is it time to evacuate passengers? Do you get how twisted Forbes actually is? They're guns for hire. They're not media. They're monsters. There's no other way to describe these people. Is it time to evacuate passengers? Probably because one of them are on the ship, see? That's the only reason you would see a headline like that. Fare packages, shipping packages, because you buy a lot of stuff, whether you know or not, from China, could be contaminated with coronavirus. And of course, we see them going around spraying the city. Cities, entire city after city. Yesterday, he just located 43 billion to spray China with disinfectant. Not just Wuhan, but China. It's like nothing I've ever heard tell of. Hollywood hasn't dreamt any of this stuff up. From previous analysts, we know coronavirus do not survive long. This is them trying to make you feel better on objects such as letters or packages, which doesn't add up when you think about what they're doing for decontamination, if that's what you want to call it. Where they're going around spraying entire cities 8, 10, 12 stories high with disinfectant and big trucks. I got some pictures that are coming up. From previous analysts, they claim that it doesn't cling the paper. Well, it does. It clings to everything. Somebody left this in the comments section. And one of the videos, I went looking for it, couldn't find it. Sulfur dioxide clouds hint high scales of cremation in China. Well, see, there's no factories working, there's no vehicles driving down the road, and the air is polluted with sulfur dioxide from incinerating humans. So Wuhan, it's the whole place, it has actually 49 crematoriums, if I remember correctly. It's way more deadly than it seems. In fact, the extent of the disease is evident by the cloud of sulfur dioxide which is seen in the affected cities. That these clouds are proof of bodies being cremated in China, or proof that a lot of bodies, an absurd amount of bodies, are being cremated. And so in a city of 11 million, which is the norm for the cremation is a normal in China, for the average people, and they've never seen anything like this before. And so when you got a city of 11 million, expect a certain amount to die every day. And then all the evidence is pointing to around 1,200 dead a day, to 50,000 dead, to 250 million quarantined. See, because when you look at all the headlines that we covered in 11 of these presentations, and it's an absurd amount, as anybody's seen more than one of these shows, well, no, it's an absurd amount of documentation is brought to everybody, because you're not going to find that on your own unless you're hardcore like me or something. You gotta be pretty hardcore to find everything I've got. Chinese officials have ordered immediate cremations of bodies. And so I've covered these stories. You go back, check my videos, it's in the titles. But anyway, big numbers of quarantined. And it makes sense that there's that many, and that's why we're seeing such savagery. The crewmen who died on a New Jersey ship, 27 were tested for coronavirus. Apparently they were all free of coronavirus. And so now they just got a crewman who died on the ship. But right away, the ship came in, they had a dead guy on the ship, take no chances, going to quarantine the ship. It was in New Jersey, I believe. You don't quote me, you have to go read it. Yeah, it is New Jersey. Yeah, it says right there. Dana, get with the program. The crew member of the cruise ship that was investigated for the coronavirus in New Jersey this weekend was found dead on the vessel. So they got a salacious headline just to get clicks, basically. As it turns out, nobody was infected. And then the 4 individuals left on the cruise ship hospitalized have been discharged. But anyway, they were just looking for clicks on that story there. That's what that was all about. There was other stories coming out making it clear there was no issue. But they want you to read all of their nonsense so they can brainwash you. Not enough manpower to get food to people in need. Food charities hit as coronavirus measures ramped up. And so food banks in these lockdown, well, I think this is Shanghai or Hong Kong. Because normally people go to the supermarket and they got a little extra money, they'll buy something, throw it in a food hamper, and these people would deliver it. Because there's a lot of people down there, they don't have a big social network. If these food banks don't exist, a lot of people won't be able to eat. They're busted up and you can't get, there's no workers' compo in China, you know. We typically receive from retailers food is not sold or near expiry. But if items are flying off the shelf, and they did, what's left to be given to them. So the stuff that would normally never sell very good is sold, and there's nothing left over. And sometimes, and they get donations sometimes, but they got nothing. And so they're going to run out of food, and the people are totally dependent upon them. We're just seeing tragedy every direction. We look at this story. Wuhan sends 34,000 government workers, party members, to fight the coronavirus. The Chinese Communist Party. Wuhan on lockdown, which 5 million people got out of that city of 11 million, has reported a total of 18,000 confirmed cases. So they're going to downplay the daylights out of it. And by Sunday, the city had combed, get a load of this, 3,371 residential communities. 3,400 communities and villages. Almost 11 million people, because we know 5 million got out of there, but here they are. No, 11 million people. Representing 99% screening rate. And he found an extra 18,000 people. I got another story comes up that counters that a little bit later. Experts say coronavirus, because there's no way they've done it. Zero. Just imagine you got to go out and knock on 11 million people's doors. Experts say coronavirus, and take their temperatures and ask them questions. No, this is just 100% propaganda. Experts say coronavirus may peak soon as death toll surges past 1,000. That was part of Forbes, eh? That story there. Oh yeah, when it hits 1,000, that's going to be it. It's going to peak. Go out and buy your stocks. And of course, what happens? The Nasdaq started going up because of that story, right? Okay, so let me see what I got here. They got a lot of pictures coming at you, or screen captures. This is a morgue. I'll bring this up to the full screen. I'm just going to click through this, talk about some of this stuff. So these are the morgues. It gives you an idea. You got to burn these bodies right away because there's lots more tomorrow, see? And they're all running full tilt around the clock. And it's just to give you a concept over time. Crisis in China over coronavirus. Authorities seize potentially infected. City streets are sprayed. Crematoriums are working 24/7. And so they're hitting, they got $43 more billion to do this. Videos out of China described as apocalyptic as they show workers Wuhan fighting the coronavirus by spraying city streets and disinfectant. Authorities seizing for quarantine those who are suspected guilty before you're tried. And so look at these all these trucks out there spraying the city. Think about that. Going both directions, spraying the city. Disinfecting the city. Which means it's airborne, right? There's no other reason to do something like this. And when they talk about that story about the packages earlier, oh no, it doesn't last long on the package. Think about that story where you're looking at all these next couple of hundred screen captures. So the only reason you go to this extreme, we've never seen it before by the way, is because it's an airborne virus. Look at the system is designed to sterilize even the top of the buildings, right? You see people on the bike that time there? I want to go back a little bit more. See the two people there not even paying attention? Or they're just part of the... Now this story here, because that could be propaganda, what you saw with the two people on the bike. Everybody else we see runs away. Now they're decontaminating an airplane, the exterior of the airplane. Does that make any sense? Like, do you get how bizarre what I'm showing you actually is? They're decontaminating an airplane. Surely, and this is because of coronavirus, because it might have got infected by coronavirus, but it can't last on a package apparently. That's bizarre land. Wuhan officials are carrying out door-to-door health checks to identify potential carriers who would need to be isolated. The vice premier, Sun Chung-lan, demanded 4 types of people. People who have been in close contact, suspected cases, confirmed cases, and people who have been in contact with the former 2, and those who have a fever or anything close to it. And the people that are out doing the job are getting minimum wage and gold stars. One emotional video showed a nurse telling her daughter, who had to stand at a distance and masked, to be good, that she will return home once the battle against the virus is won. "Mom, I miss you a lot," the girl said through tears. And she was crying her heart out. She missed her mom. "I miss you a lot," she said through her tears. "Mom is fighting monsters," the mother replied, "and I'll be back home once the virus is destroyed." That's the nurse right there. She's fighting monsters. "I'll be back home once the virus is beaten." I said bitten, did I? Tina. I get caught up in these stories too sometimes. She can only give her daughter an air hug. A heartbreaking story, from which the girl returns and leaves food for her mother. Yeah, such a sad story, eh? That's going on all over that country. If they're lucky, they can get that much contact, but they're not allowed to have contact. Excuse me. I'll come back to your company after we win the fight. Imagine how heartbreaking that is. Speaking of heartbreaking, the World Health Organization, now he was in charge, they're trolls as far as I'm concerned, but he was in charge of Ethiopia for quite a few years because you know Ethiopia, lots of people starving to death, and they get desensitized if you have that job. You're not really fit for another job. They should retire people like that right away because they're emotionally destroyed, right? Or they like what they're doing. The World Health Organization has said the first vaccine targeting... Now, they're not going to make any vaccines. They've been injecting themselves into the countries as if they have some... as if they're better than everybody. And they're not supposed to exist. Each country is able to do this job. Warned of a global threat potentially worse than terrorist. Why would a health organization invoke the words terrorism? And why would the health organization invoke it? Because they have a lot of eyes on them, right? Think about what a super low thing to do. Think about how loathsome you actually got to be to invoke the words terrorism attack. Because that's not part of their mandate. And they're not, like, who are these creeps that they think that they can go into everybody's country worldwide and tell them how to think and how to act and how to walk? I just think it's disgusting. Their whole legacy, as I showed you earlier, what Forbes was up to, the World Health Organization has done nothing for the health of the victims from Fukushima. It didn't protect people worldwide from the food that's shipped from Japan's nuclear meltdown. They're growing 750 million pounds a year of just rice in the most radiated place in human history and shipping it worldwide. And the World Health Organization tried to get South Korea to take that food. South Korea finally beat them, adjudicated it. But nevertheless, the Americans, that hubris to do something like that, They should be in jail. The World Health Organization is a specialized agency of the United Nations. And the United Nations, of course, they're taking the sovereignty of many countries, and basically, you got to ask them for permission for just about anything in your country, and it's not acceptable. They're destroying country after country. The current Director General. Oh, that's right, no, it is. Look at that. Director General of the World Health Organization, an Ethiopian health minister from 2005 to 2012. Just go look up how many people starved to death in that period in Ethiopia. How do people like that get a job after is the biggest question to me. The World Health Organization Constitution states, so the World Health Organization has a constitution. The World Health Organization has its own constitution. Like, if you try to wrap your mind what that actually means, you'd be like me, where you pull most of your hair out. And then to invoke the words terrorism attack. These are terrorists as far as I can tell. Their whole legacy, if you actually look at what they were up to, there's no other conclusion. 1.5 million infected, 250 million quarantined. Look under my video up there. Displace is the name of my video. The World Health Organization now is on my video. You get what's going on here? They're the cover-up. That's what the World Health Organization's job is, to cover up the severity. And there's enough criticism out there, rightfully so, about this organization. You really truly got to be a monster to work for this organization. That's my video we're talking about, by the way. Cruise ship turned away from 5 countries despite no passengers testing positive. It is what it is. We're in a completely unique time. Turned away by Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, U.S. territory of Guam. Oh, the World Health Organization, all of a sudden in the last 4 or 5 days, is getting quoted everywhere. This is to artificially inflate their value. Said Thai officials might board the ship. Not World Health, but Thai officials. So why don't you quote the Thai officials instead of the scumbag losers, the World Health? Coronavirus threat spreads to British schools and prisons. So you think about this. Gets loose in the school. They go home. They got all the big social networks. He goes to the mall. He goes to the grocery shop every day. Blah, 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 blah. And think about a prison getting it. How are you going to slow this one down? The coronavirus threat has spread to schools, prisons. Warnings from the health secretary that the crisis facing Britain will get worse before it gets better. First off, you got Boris Johnson running your country. How could it possibly get worse than that? Matt Hancock on Tuesday announced plans for hospitals to build emergency isolation facilities. To build new ones, right? I refuse to call him a prime or a minister. Shithead Boris Johnson said everyone should be confident and calm about their incompetence and their responses. So when Chernobyl happened, UK closed 9,000 farms but didn't tell the victims. Like, when you close 9,000 farms in your country from radioactive fallout, you got to close all your drinking water. You got to close all your communities. Shelter in place for the next several thousand years. The whole planet is... And then you keep... They hire their children, Now we're up to today's. And you got the World Health Organization's United Nations little lapdog, the World Health Organization, out there pretending they're gods and queens and kings. Anxious parents say they were left shaken with fear while the father of a child put in quarantine said his child had been targeted with abuse. 4 surgeons in Britain and a nursing home in Brighton and Hove have closed as a result of coronavirus, with 2 general practitioners, doctors, among those diagnosed in recent days. How many did they infect? Yeah, we're not even... Like, this is just starting to take off. Give this another 10 to 15 to 20 days. And yeah, we'll be definitely heading for the billions. Coronavirus could infect billions of people if it's not stomped out. Well, you can't, because they let 5 million escape just Wuhan. There was 55 million quarantined. Those other cities would let similar people escape because that's the government's own, right? And themselves and that. Professor from Hong Kong warned that anywhere from 60 to 80% of the world's population could contract the virus if it wasn't contained. It ain't contained. And then to claim that you're only going to infect 2.5 people, but you see the disproportionate reaction to a single person, and studies showing that they can infect hundreds. It's airborne, it stays there. Okay, so now we got a bunch of pictures to get through. Let's run through them. So if you don't wear your mask, these are the craziest stuff I've ever seen. If you don't wear your mask, you got people that got no protection whatsoever, police, and you don't do nothing on what you're told, or they'll beat the shit out of you. Look at them, all savages. All the police are like savages, grabbing all of her limbs, shoving her head down into the ground with their foot on her neck, takes it off and then puts it back on again. Like, wow, man. Shoving her face in the cement because she doesn't have a mask on. Same with this lady, doesn't have a mask on. And then the Communist Party lapdogs surround her, waiting for the police to show up. Turns into a fight. You're not going nowhere. You're going to be arrested. It's really something. And you can see the police dragging her away finally. Tattered and torn. They most likely stepped on her head too. That's how they arrest you down there. They just jump on you. Look at it. That's another female. You got these big fat piglets jumping on you. And all the people are there laughing in the background. Look at them laughing. There's a bunch of people laughing in the background. It's probably the police taping it and putting it up on the internet, right? This guy here was like, I can't afford a face mask. Can't find one. That's too bad, buddy. You're off to the quarantine with you. You're doing brake holds on him. Same with this person. Watch this, kicking her in the face. See that? Go back there to that one. Actually kicks her in the face. See if I caught it. Yeah, I didn't catch it. The cop closest to us in the center, he kicked her right in the head and then punched her with like an uppercut type punch. She stopped resisting right away, of course. And same thing with this one. Look at all the cops. They just pounce on you if you got no mask. And they beat you down. That's the solution. The solution to everything is use a hammer. You don't talk to anybody. And if you won't wear the mask, it's probably because they're mentally ill or something, right? And even this lady, she kicks back at him, and that's it. She just kicked that time, you kind of miss it. And so just slam her down, break her neck. If you can. This guy, they're pepper spraying this guy. He's screwed up. Now he's spraying him again. They grab onto him. He's hanging onto a tree. You don't wear your mask. This seems to be the norm now. This is as extreme as it gets. Same here. She's calling the police or something. She's trying to get a truck to come pick him up or whatever. Not like to notice how everybody just jumps on them right away. All of these, because they're not wearing a face mask. That's the one thing they all got in common, right? It's insanity. Same as that lady there with her brown pants, stripe, black stripes. She got no face mask on. They get tired of it. They just grab her and throw her, and they almost break her arm. Shoving down on her head, he sticks her head right between his legs, eh? These are nothing but thugs. Everything we see of these people are just unbelievable thuggery. You want to stop them? Give them a $5,000 fine. That'll stop them dead in their tracks. They'll put that face mask on right quick. Beating them up is not going to solve anything. And if they're going around doing this, what's the possibility that they're going to get infected? You go home and infect their children, their friends, and their loved ones. They're going to get sick. They're the super spreaders, right? And so how bad is it that you're going to go around and beat people up because you won't put a mask on? That should really tell you how out of touch this story is. How insane and insidious it's become. It's just going to get worse, see? They'll just shoot you at some point. Which I'm sure they're doing, right? We've seen them actually do it. People that wouldn't stop, they shoot them. And then drag them away. Big whoop. Wow. Another woman, just throwing her in because she don't have a face mask on. All the people we're showing you don't have face masks, right? That's two people that throw a man and a woman to the ground. Hard too. Fling them. She's going to fling that girl in the background right around, face down. Or on her back. Stick their knees on them. Let me go back here. China's people war against coronavirus, seen by many as unorganized propaganda. And it is, that's propaganda. If you think you can resolve this event by taking people's temperatures, you're stupider than the shoes you're wearing. Like, you can do a lot more with honey than you can with a hammer. It doesn't make sense. So the truth, and then the Chinese, of course, you know, even if this wasn't happening, you've seen footage like that, it's going to be pretty hard to buy something from China again. Top-down nature, China's system tends to create a non-scientific, heavy-handed approach to disease prevention. I just showed you that, right? And control. Certainly, it is very impressive, mobilizing the entire state of thugs and society to beat up anybody without a mask. But it may not be a scientific approach in terms of finding the infected cases. No, you're telling police to go out and be thugs. Like, that's too much to do stuff like that. Because without a face mask, the solution is to beat them up. How is that going to solve it? You got 4 or 5 cops doing it at the same time. How is that a solution? How did you ever get the job in the first place? How do you tie your own shoes? Is the real question, I bet. In Wuhan, the epicenter, authorities launched... There's no such thing. We just seen the authorities where they beat you up. Launched a weekend campaign to quarantine the infected and to find the feverish and those who had close contact with the sick. The Los Angeles Times is going to have a go at them. Wuhan's Communist Party chief said at a news conference Monday, 11 million residents, 98.6% of all the households, and 99% of the city's population have been given health exams. That's absurd. They don't... Like, you have to be highly educated to do something like that. It apparently been done in just 5 days. In 5 days, they checked 11 million people, did they? Oh, yeah. Well, actually, it's only 6 million. Still, though. Only 1,499 critical cases of new coronavirus. So they only found 1,500 critical people dying. All were hospitalized by Monday. The city then planned to test all suspected cases, but there's a 24-day latency period. But they're going to check everything else by Tuesday, so they're done it all by Monday. We'll have it wrapped up tomorrow. What do you want us to do next? All these days, imagine doing New York in that period, let alone China. Imagine that you're going to get contaminated if you try doing something like that. All these days, no one has checked on us at all, is the truth though. People have spoken out. When I went to take out the trash, there was a sign on our building that said no infections. And they say, did they test us through the air? What they're saying is no one came to the buildings. They just put on the buildings, everything's good. Have a nice day. Your local chicken X. A woman in Wuhan named Lu Yao, 30, said in a phone interview that her father, 61, was still on her home quarantine despite having had a fever since January the 30th and a diagnosis of coronavirus since February the 9th. Pharmacies have been forbidden from selling fever and cough medicine in the hopes those would have been brought, those who would buy those medications will instead go to a hospital. We covered that yesterday, I think. And then also, I can't remember. So people that are buying registers or must register a name if you're buying cough syrup at a lot of places also. They come check on you later. A new directive, which means this is very bad, which means this is insane, which means this is crazy, which means, you know, don't drop your guards. Just because, like, so as soon as the World Health Organization showed up, numbers went down immediately. That's what they are. They're a public relation firm. That's their job, is to make you look away. Makes it a crime punishable by 3 years in prison or even death to conceal the virus. So you can get a fine, 3 years in jail, or death if you conceal that you got coronavirus. Does that sound like the flu to you? Is that not the most batshit thing I've ever heard? What would you say if they start doing that in your country? Because they will. And that's it. And that's all of it. That's the show for tonight. It's just there's so much information coming out. So much information coming out that if I got enough there to do a presentation, I might as well do it because it just keeps flying out. And we're categorizing and logging as much as we can find that's important and pertinent and really tells the minutiae, the details of the story, so that people can get up to speed, because you're not going to hear this information literally nowhere else. There's nobody doing this. People are like, they'll take a story or two stories and they'll do their videos. The media, that's what the media is doing. And I'm bringing you an incredible archive, and then I'm able to extrapolate accurately, you know, what you're looking at. And so that's important because we don't have anybody doing it. God bless everybody. We'll say hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody, I have no doubt, tomorrow. And there's a bit of a snowstorm today. We're going to have a bigger one tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. And so unless we lose the internet connection here, which is pretty stable, most likely be back tomorrow night. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody soon. This job ain't going to go away anytime soon. God bless.